Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. Second live stream, actually, for the day, because first one was at midnight, as I promised. And today, at midnight, by the way, I will launch also live stream. And hopefully more members of our community will join that live stream. I will share, obviously, now whatever updates we have from that midnight, past midnight. And by the way, all the reports on major news, of course, will be in that second live stream today. It's confusing, by the way, but as I said, 12 p.m. I have one live stream, 20 a.m. second one for whole week, at least until Thursday, possibly Friday. Some members of community asked me to do some testing of like that, and I'm gonna do it. Why not? And okay, right now there was a donation, by the way, and a super chat on Rumble from Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat on Rumble. And after the new segment, of course, I will react on your commentary there. Thank you very much once again. And dear friends, I will remind you that I am streaming simultaneously on YouTube and Rumble. And if you are subscribed to my Rumble channel, please continue to watch this live stream there. A lot of news, a lot of major updates. And so, yes, without further delay, let's start this show. And well, first report is about work of Russian air defense systems past night. RIA Novosti, based on Russian Defense Ministry's latest update, informed public that 10 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO were intercepted over their several Russian regions past night. I can give you details on that. So over the course of past night, air defense systems on duty intercepted 10 drones, 10 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles of their fixed wing type. 3 drones over the territory were intercepted over the territory of Belgorod region, 3 drones over the territory of Ariol region, 2 over the Kaluga region, 1 over the territory of Kursk region, and 1 over the territory of Rostov region. According to this update, relatively small number compared to other days, obviously. This was a somewhat case yesterday too, and even day before. And whenever we have statistics like that, when low number of drones are launched by Kyiv regime and subsequently numbers of intercepted drones are also low, usually that means that Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are stockpiling drones, and in upcoming days we should expect a large-scale attempt of NATO and their proxy Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russian territory with the drones. Air defense systems on duty are ready, and they already saved, by the way, numerous lives, right, with their brilliant work. And of course, they will deal whatever enemy will throw at us. But unfortunately, every now and then, some drones, some missiles that are launched by Kyiv regime are managing to bypass air defense systems, because after all, even best air defense systems in the world, and this is Russian air defense system, obviously, are unable to intercept 100% of targets always, constantly. Technically impossible, I will argue. And therefore, unfortunately, every single week, civilians are killed in Russian territory, Russian citizens, as a result of these terrorist attacks of NATO and their proxy Kyiv regime. And Russian diplomat Miroshnik shared with public information that 12 Russian citizens were killed by Ukrainian armed forces strikes in a week. 12 more civilians were killed by Kyiv regime and its NATO backers just in a week. So over the past week, 12 Russian civilians, including 6-year-old child, have been killed and more than 60 injured as a result of attacks by Ukrainian armed forces. Ambassador at large of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Radion Miroshnik, told the TASS news agency. And of course, Miroshnik is a diplomat. He cannot articulate that this is a NATO strikes on Russia too, but I can. I'm not a diplomat, and I can say what I think straight away without some polite correctness. And of course, this is a NATO strikes on Russia, and it's a NATO countries, leadership of NATO member states are guilty in the death of these civilians and all the other civilians that were killed on Russian territory, on territory of Ukraine, this former Soviet republic, because none of it would happen if NATO countries did not intervene in Ukraine's internal affairs due to their pursuit of destruction of Russia and their long-standing dream of destruction of Russia. And yes, so many tragedies could be avoided if there was not that bloody coup d'etat in 2014 orchestrated by the West and subsequent civil war and eventually launch of special military operation. But well, we are living in a reality where all this has happened, and one might only hope that eventually Western ruling elites, Western ruling class will pay dearly for all the crimes that they committed against people of Russia, people of Ukraine. All of us are part of a Russian world, by the way, and this conflict that we are observing for 4 years now, it's a civil war inside the Russian world that Western ruling class did manage to provoke and uses against Russia. Information that you're not going to receive or you're not going to see in the Western media, by the way, obviously. Russian militaries are retaliating on the line of contact and also with the long-range precision strikes. And according to a number of sources, last night, Russian forces launched yet another long-range strikes, yet another wave of long-range strikes, precision strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime, also on energy infrastructure of the Kiev regime. So topic of energy truce is definitely close now. And according to reports, explosions were heard in Kiev direction, Vinnytsia direction, Dnipropetrovsk, Cherkasy, Sumy, Kharkov, Nikolaev, Odessa, and other areas also. And Mash Telegram channel, one of the big Telegram channels in the Russian segment of this platform, shared with the public some details about last night's Russian retaliatory strike. And I think you will find this information also interesting. Let me give you these details. So the Russian armed forces are launching the most massive, according to Mash, by the way, most massive strike on energy facilities in Ukraine since the beginning of the year, a day after the end of the energy truce announced by Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin didn't announce nothing. Mash is mistaken on that. It was Trump, US president, that actually made an announcement about this agreement being reached about temporary energy truce that expired on 1st of February. More than 100 Gerain drones and over 30 ballistic missiles, among them Zircon hypersonic missile, Iskander-M tactical missile, also Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, X or KH-22 missiles, as well as multiple rocket launchers, Tornado-S, for example, were participating in this long-range precision strike. Record, according to Mash, yet again, record for the entire duration of the special military operation. An air alert was declared in most of the Kiev-controlled territory. Tu-95MS and the MiG-31K aircrafts were also deployed by Russian sides. Targets of their attack included Thermopower Plant 6 in the Kharkov region, Pridniprovskaya Thermopower Plant in Dnipropetrovsk region, Tripolskaya Thermopower Plant in the Kiev region, the 750 kilovolt Kiev substation in Makarov, the Damitsa thermal power plant in Kiev, and 440 kilowatt substation in Kharkov, and 330 kilowatt substation in Odessa. Chuguev, part of Kharkov and the Sumy region were left without electricity immediately after these strikes. That's the information that Mash is reporting. Well, interesting. If true, by the way, if all this data is correct, then it was indeed quite large-scale Russian retaliatory strike, long-range strike on military, logistical, energy infrastructure of the Kiev regime, and of course, this strike will have its consequences, negative consequences for the Kiev regime. So, discussion about energy truce is finished. There is no more energy truce. It's clear. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that Ukrainian armed forces militants are fleeing their positions and abandoning their weapons in the Sumy region, in certain areas of the Sumy region. Let's be more clear on that. So, Ukrainian armed forces militants are harshly abandoning their positions and in the Krasnopolsky district of the Sumy region. Russian security forces told the RIA Novosti about it. Empty alcohol bottles and the personal protective equipment are being found at their abandoned positions, he added. Well, in this freezing weather, well, it is not really that surprising that Kiev regime militants were trying to warm themselves up with their alcohol. Nord group of forces is operating in this region, according to Ministry of Defense, and their enemy losses were about 250 military personnel in past 24 hours on this direction. Armored combat vehicle and also 14 other types of vehicles, 2 artillery pieces, and 5 supply depots were neutralized. Interesting. This report definitely does not mean that the entire front line or entire defense line of the Kiev regime in Sumy region is collapsing. Definitely not yet, but I guess in Krasnopolsky district, Kiev regime's forces are on the edge of their breakdown, I guess, and as this report says, in number of areas, Kiev regime's militants are just fleeing their positions and running away, leaving behind everything they can. Also, dear friends, Russian assault units from Vostok group of forces liberated their Pridorozhne settlement in Zaporozhye region. Over 3 square kilometers of enemy defenses are now under Russian control in this area. Armed forces of Ukraine reportedly lost an assault regiment, heavy hexacopters, and the ground robots during this Russian offensive and clearing operation in this settlement. And I can show you location of this village, by the way. It's a Zaporozhye region, eastern flank of Zaporozhye region, on the northern side of Gulay Pole, and this is the settlement itself. Relatively small settlement, as you can see here, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen of buildings. But at this point, obviously, this settlement has a key importance because I guess it's only a matter of days now, and Russian troops will begin offensive operations towards Rizvanka settlement, this relatively large village, by the way, here. I mean, relatively large village here. And also in direction of Vozdvizhenka, this village right here. And clearly already, I will say, we have a confirmation of my prediction that Russian troops are conducting or preparing ground to conduct pincer operation to encircle Orekhov. Russian militaries are advancing from both sides, from eastern flank and the western flank of Zaporozhye region. And when it comes to western flank, Russian troops not just are closing in towards major supply and support lines that Turkey regime's Orekhov garrison has, but also Russian troops are moving northwards. And soon, I'm quite sure soon we're going to receive information about settlements of Visya, and Grigorievka are being liberated. According to some reports, forward units of the Russian troops are in less than 10 kilometers away from Zaporozhye, by the way. I guess this report is about DRGs. Russian DRGs probably were spotted this close to the suburbs of Zaporozhye city, administrative center of the region. But forward positions of the Russian regular army right now located in Richnoe settlement, which was liberated just a couple of days ago. And from Richnoe, by the way, towards the suburbs of Zaporozhye is also about, I don't know, 15 kilometers maybe. That's it. So Russian troops are closing in to this administrative center with quite a speed, Also, dear friends, we had an update that Russian armed forces began clearing operation in Alexandrovka settlement on the border with the Dnipropetrovsk region, right? No, it's Kharkov region. And yesterday there was reports, by the way, about further advances of the Russian armed forces in the Nikiforovka area. That's it, by the way. Unfortunately, this map might get quite confusing time to time because icons are disappearing. So yesterday there was reports about entry of the Russian troops into Nikiforovka settlement, and I guess right now clearing operation is underway, and maybe even today or tomorrow we will begin receiving information about settlement being liberated. And this is important because if you take a look at the map, I will make it as big as possible. Look, this is Nikiforovka here, and this is Kramatorsk and Slavyansk agglomeration. And in between, by the way, forward units of the Russian armed forces on the east of this agglomeration and agglomeration itself, there is only, few settlements. Kiev regime don't really has much of defense lines right here. And therefore, Russian troops will completely breach third line of defense. And that's exactly what is going on right now on the eastern flank of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk direction. I guess advances of the Russian troops going to accelerate significantly. And also, it's not just the southern, eastern, and eastern flank that Russian troops are advancing already towards Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, but northern flank too. And once Liman city will be either encircled so that Russian troops would be able to free certain number of troops to move southwards, right, towards Slavyansk, or maybe after Liman will be liberated, Russian troops obviously will launch offensive towards Slavyansk from the northern side too. And when it comes to Liman, by the way, Russian troops are from three sides. Russian troops already managed to encircle this town from the southern side, eastern side, northern side. Only western side that is still open for Kiev regime's garrison in Liman and can be used for resupply and reinforcement. But take a look at this gray zone, by the way. Russian militaries are very close to shut down this western axis also. And at that point, Liman is encircled, and I don't think it will take too long for Russian militaries to liberate this city. Anyways, maybe it's too early to say that battle for Slavyansk Kramatorsk agglomeration has begun, but we are getting closer and closer to that moment. And also, dear friends, I want to share with you information about developments in the Sumy region. Lately, Russian troops become significantly active in the Sumy area. In number of areas on the border with the Russian Federation. Creation of new buffer zones, new fragments of the buffer zone has begun. And yesterday, number of sources reported about advances of the Russian troops through border towards Miropolier settlement, also towards Alexandria settlement. And I guess in next several days, possibly before end of this week, we will start receiving information that either both settlements are disputed or under Russian control. Otherwise, I don't think Russian troops will launch this offensive in this direction, right? And this is it for a relatively short summary of the developments on the battlefields. Initiative is, of course, in Russian hands all along the front line. And as I have said a million times, in no circumstances and in no universe, by the way, Russian enemies, NATO member states, and their proxy regime will be able to regain initiative anywhere, ever. That's it, right? Let's continue with some other news now. And well, of course, topic of negotiations, by the way, still relevant because media pays attention to it, and therefore public also here in Russia and elsewhere too, quite sure. And well, yesterday during my night update, let's call it that, I shared with public information that Witkoff, allegedly, Steve Witkoff, aide of U.S. President, will participate in upcoming trilateral talks in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Information was shared with the public originally by Axios reporter Barak Ravider. And let me give you a quote here. So, U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for peacekeeping missions, Steven Witkoff, will participate in the talks with Russia and the Ukrainian delegations in the United Arab Emirates on February 4th and 5th. He wrote on his Twitter X page, and this is somewhat in news because earlier, by the way, there was a report that neither Witkoff, neither Kushner or any other Trump representative will be joining those trilateral talks. Some other people probably will, participate from American side, but I remind you that in past several days, aide of Russian President Kirill Dmitriev went to US. He had meetings with Witkoff, with Kushner, I believe, with even Treasury Secretary of US Scott Bessent, right? And after that, we are receiving this update that Witkoff actually will participate in the talks. So therefore, maybe some agreements were reached during those talks between Witkoff and Dmitriev, between Dmitriev and other American officials, right? And Washington changed its initial stand. So Witkoff will participate. I don't really expect much of a breakthrough to happen during this Abu Dhabi talks. Definitely not in terms of military de-escalation or the political solution for sustainable peace, but some agreements might actually be reached in terms of humanitarian tracks. This could happen actually because this was the case also during the Istanbul talks, right? There was some agreements that was reached in a humanitarian area, and these Abu Dhabi talks might actually go down same way. And I'm saying so because well, that was interesting. By mistake I shut down dear friends, browser, but it will take a second and I'll be back. So I'm back, and so I'm saying so because Umerov, one of the members of the delegation of Kiev regime, hinted that sooner there might be some news about exchange of POWs between the Kiev regime and the Russian side. So therefore, I guess there is a high probability that some progress will be actually reached during this Abu Dhabi talks in humanitarian terms, and at least some POWs will be exchanged between the between the sides. Same time, by the way, if you think that well, U.S. Leadership is clearly on the side of peace and wants to de-escalate, you'll be mistaken. You'll be mistaken because in my personal opinion, because I think what U.S. Ruling class is focused on is to transfer this this proxy war from its shoulder to shoulder of the Europe, right? American ruling class wants Europe to play leading role in this proxy war against Russia, so that American ruling class or US ruling class, will be focused on some other directions. That's what is happening, and that's why Trump's administration authorized the transfer of weapons to Kyiv regime for billions and billions and billions of dollars. A lot of weapons being transferred to prolong this proxy war by the US, right? And I remind you, dear friends, that Mark Rutte was bragging about buying weapons from US for 5 billion euros past year alone, right? Past year alone. And he was hopeful that in 2026, more weapons will be sent to Kyiv regime to prolong this proxy war from the US, right? And this is not all. Earlier, if you remember, and I was reporting about it, Trump, his administration authorized transfer to Kyiv regime 3,000 ERAM, 3,000 cruise missiles under the ERAM program. And now we have update on this information. Clearly, none of these steps and none of the other steps that we have observed indicates that US actually interested in the de-escalation of anything. All they want, by the way, is to force Europeans to pay for everything and Europeans to be prolonging this proxy war as long as they can, right? So that Washington will be focused on others. That's all is happening, really. And everyone sees this, right? But nevertheless, additional confirmation of this, I can give you now this report that I saw on the Kirill Fyodorov Vayna Istoria Оружия channel, one of the biggest channels in Russian Telegram. And information is that US successfully conducted a test of one of their missiles of the ERAM program, specifically their Rusty Dagger from their Zone 5 company at their Eglin test range. The warhead of their missile, small-scale missile, was tested during their event, and this is quote, during their event, which allowed to achieve all their main goals, including their complete detonation of their warhead. Important data were collected for the creation of a new cost-effective means, according to companies' representatives. And the reports are, by the way, that, well, there is several type of missiles that will be developed and is being developed under the ERAM program, specifically to be transferred to Kyiv regime and then to be used against Russia. And some of those cruise missiles will have a range about 500 kilometers and over that. So this is significant for sure. And Trump's administration authorized transfer of 3,000 this type of cruise missiles to Kyiv regime past year. And I reported about it. 3,000 cruise missiles, by the way, with a range of 500 kilometers, potentially and higher. And now these missiles under this program are in the final phase of their testing, and reports are that first deliveries of these missiles will happen around October 2026. And you might say, well, it's a long way from now to October. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But nevertheless, schedule might change. Some missiles might be delivered earlier, right, than October. But it's not just the timing. It's about US policies, right? That's why I always say, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Policies matter. Policies is the thing that actually matters, right? And whenever anybody from U.S. administration says that they are for peace and they are looking for the escalation, someone should challenge them and tell. I mean, you authorized transfer of 3,000 cruise missiles to Kyiv regime to be used against Russia. So what are you talking about? What kind of a peacemaker are you then, right? What's going on here? But of course, no one gonna challenge, by the way, American ruling class. No one gonna ask critical questions, I think. And these missiles, by the way, developed under the Iranian program, will be used by whatever number of MiG-29s and F-16s Kyiv regime will have for the time of delivery of these systems. So, yet again, dear friends, one more factual evidence that U.S. ruling class, U.S. presidential administration cannot be trusted, and all the talks how much they seek peace is BS, right? Because policies matter, and on the policy level, that's what they do. That's what they do, by the way. They send more and more weapons to prolong this proxy war as much as possible. That's how it is, right? And yet again, I'm 100% convinced, by the way, that the U.S. ruling class would love to see prolongation of this war, proxy war that West is waging against Russia for another decade even, right? Because they love to see any harm being done to Russia. But right now, they are more focused on other regions, right? They are more focused on China. And therefore, they prefer Europeans to lead this proxy war, not the Americans. That's what is happening. So no one should buy this nonsense that Americans are seeking peace or de-escalation. No, man. American ruling class was never about peace. Never. Anyways, I mentioned earlier negotiations, isn't it? And on this matter, well, surprisingly somewhat, chairman of the OSCE and simultaneously Swiss foreign minister Ignacio Cassis stated that he would travel to Moscow after his visit to Kiev. He also expressed hope for a swift end to the conflict in Ukraine. I can give you a quote from him. We will also go to Moscow with the same message because Russia, Ukraine, and 55 other states are members of this organization. If they take this organization seriously, we all need to find a solution very quickly. And this is interesting, by the way. In my previous update, in my previous live stream, and dear friends, if you have not seen it, check it if you can, because I will repeat some news, but definitely not all of the news that I shared in my previous live stream. And this report is interesting because European elites did try a couple of times, at least on a verbal level, to establish some communication with Moscow. It did not really worked out. You also know that Europeans are basically absent from current trilateral talks between Moscow, Kyiv, and Washington, and a number of European officials were openly expressing their unhappiness with this, right? They won't sit around the table. And of course, European elites don't want US to leave this proxy war on them, right, on Europe. They want US to stay in this war as much as possible, right? And they are looking for ways how they can enter these talks again, how they can be in a position to better manipulate with the parties, including American side, right? And because direct communication or attempt of direct communication between French leadership, German leadership, Italian leadership, and so on did not work really. Well, I guess they come up with this idea that they're going to use now, they're going to weaponize again Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe to infiltrate this process, right? That is taking place with participation of US, Russia, and the Kyiv regime. And I guess Moscow will see this as it is. And Moscow will not fail for this yet another trick on the part of European elites, because you should know, dear friends, and of course, majority of our community knows that, if anything, OSCE, this organization, was extremely anti-Russian, extremely hostile towards Russia, by the way. They did nothing, literally nothing, right, to play initial role, original role that this organization should have, to bring sides closer, right, to avoid confrontation. No, man, OSCE always was a hostile towards Russia, and always failed to play a role of a mediator. And now European elites remember OSCE. They want to weaponize it again against Russia in this yet another deception operation. Not gonna work. Not gonna work. In Russian media, I have not seen no reports about upcoming visit of OSCE head chairman in Russian Federation. But even if he comes to Moscow, okay, Russian side will treat him and their delegation with respect, dignity, obviously. But I mean, I don't think anybody gonna listen to them, because everyone understands this is yet another attempt of Europe and elites to weaponized and used against Russia, this organization, and to infiltrate basically this process, right, of talks between Washington, Moscow, and Kiev, that not gonna lead anywhere really in terms of political or military de-escalation. But nevertheless, Europeans want to have a seat around the table, and they are using any means for that. We will find out how successful they're going to be. And also, when it comes to these international trips and visits and stuff, today there will be a visit of Secretary General of NATO into Kiev. Mark Rutte will have a meeting with Zelensky, and also he plans to address Ukraine's state rada, which is name of parliament there. And well, if a visit will actually happen, for now I did not see any reports Rutte being in Kiev, but maybe he will arrive a little later. Anyways, we should expect just additional like strong statements against Russia, false promises of from NATO that they're gonna stand with the Ukrainian people to the end, and the rest of the BS, right? Nothing serious to be expected from this visit. Just another push in terms of PR, right? In terms of public relations, to further brainwash as many people on the Q-control territory as possible that, well, you see, NATO with us, we're gonna win, we're gonna occupy Moscow, and that kind of bullshit, and to be easily sold to the public. And trust me, by the way, propaganda in the Q-control territory is so freaking severe, so crazy, that some people actually are brainwashed on such a level that they think soon NATO gonna launch a war against Russia for Ukraine, and together with Ukrainian troops, they're gonna occupy Moscow. That's how out of touch with reality quite a number of people on the Q-control territory are nowadays, because of this constant propaganda that they see, they read, they listen day in, day out. So another PR stunt, basically, from Mark Rutte. I personally don't expect anything serious from that, but yet again, let's wait and see. Vzгляд newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting, sort of as a confirmation, by the way, that all this tough talk from Europe, you know, is just an attempt to mislead the public in Ukraine, and then basically sacrifice easier. Another confirmation of that is that, well, despite all the tough talk, EU countries have failed to agree on mechanisms for a 90 billion euro loan for a Kyiv regime that they agreed earlier that will allocate, right? At an extraordinary meeting of EU permanent representatives, compromise on their mechanism for a 90 billion euro loan for Kyiv regime was not reached. Source reported EU countries have failed to agree on a mechanism for providing 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. European source reported that meeting of permanent representatives took place on Monday, yesterday, but no final agreement on their disbursement mechanism was reached. According to source, there is no final agreement yet. Work on further compromises is ongoing with the goal of concluding an agreement in the coming days. Political decision on allocating this 90 billion euro to prolong this proxy war basically was for 2026-2027, for next 2 years, by the way, 2026-2027, was made at the EU summit in December 2025, just about months ago, by the way, right? But still, there is many promises that they're gonna do this and that, and they're gonna die for Bandera and Chukhevich and all the Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists. But in reality, all they want is to use and abuse Ukraine and residents of Ukraine as much as they possibly can, right? Including with false promises. And then they will switch to some other ways to harm Russia. That's how it is. Most likely, they will begin sacrificing other countries and their peoples of those other countries, right? So no mechanisms of allocating this 90 billion euro yet. And there, by the way, this is not all. 90 billion was not enough to prolong this, according to Western reports, not enough to prolong this proxy war for another 2 years, 2026, 2027. So therefore, EU somehow have to find another 60 to 80 billion euros on top of this 90, if they actually want to finance all the spendings, right, in this proxy war. And this might not be enough, but at least they have to find another 80 million on top of this 90. So how are they going to do it? I wonder how they're going to do it, man. We will see when they cannot even come up with an agreement about this 90 billion euro loan, because who's going to pay for this money, by the way? It's European countries, right? It's European countries, European taxpayers. And majority of European countries are facing economical decline. And I don't think European elites, even if they don't care, absolutely don't care about their fellow countrymen, I don't think they want our economical collapse in Europe in such a scale that they're going to face not just opposition, but freaking revolutions or the mass unrest all over Europe. So therefore, they cannot really risk that much, right? Something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. Also, dear friends, I want to thank again Scooby. He just gifted 2 members of our community on Rumble with their premium subscriptions, and each of these gift is a $5 donation for this project. So thank you very much, Scooby, for being very supportive. Thank you. And as I said, I will react on your super chat straight after the news segment. I have made a copy, and I'm not gonna forget this, of course. And now, dear friends, let's and right now another super chat from Scooby. I will copy this one too. And dear friends, if you are watching on YouTube, and if you are subscribed to my Rumble page, or if you can to switch to my Rumble page, that will be good, of course. And in a second, super chat. In a second super chat, there is a link to Upscrolled, and even though I don't know what this is, Upscrolled, this is new app, isn't it? This is new app, and therefore let me highlight right now so that more people will see it. Let me highlight right now. So okay, so that's the second super chat from Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for $5 donation through super chat. And this is a comment from Scooby, a link to Upscrolled, and I have heard about this new app quite a number of times. I was I was told by members of community to make a page there, and well, I have to let's see. Time wise, I'm barely managing to deal with the channels that I already have. Additional pages are gonna be more demanding time wise, but let's see. Thank you, Scooby, and you know what? Let me react. On your first super chat also. Just a sec. So this is the first super chat from Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat, $5 donation with this super chat and the commentary. Hey, Russian, how much of your digital life belongs to you, and how much of it sits on servers in the USA, controlled by their companies whose business model is your data? Well, that's a question, isn't it? Western platforms are still quite popular here in Russia. I'm mainly using YouTube and Rumble, but Patreon, by the way, YouTube, Rumble, Patreon, of course. And that's about it when it comes to Twitter X. Yes, Twitter X, 4 platforms, I remember right now. Sometimes I do use or used to use WhatsApp, but rarely really. But nevertheless, there is number of not just these platforms but other platforms too that are quite popular among Russians. And well, many companies here in Russia are creating alternatives and are working hard to challenge these Western companies, right? Many of them are even banned, by the way, here in Russia. But nevertheless, I think Western platforms have a lot of information about Russian citizens, a lot of personal data, a lot of all sorts of information, which is a risk, which is definitely a risk, for sure. Thank you very much, Scooby, once again for your support, for your attention, and for giving the gifts of premium subscription to members of our community. Thank you. And well, let's continue with the other news now. Let's continue with the other news. And well, Russian Foreign Ministry once again stated that Russia will regard the introduction of Western forces in Ukraine as an intervention. In position of Russian side, did not really we cannot really see any changes. Position is same now. as it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? But every now and then, Russian high-ranking officials or Russian state institutions find themselves in a situation when they have to reiterate these very same statements, and that's exactly what happened with their foreign ministry. Russia will consider the deployment of Western troops in Ukraine an intervention, foreign ministry said, and then, quote, deployment of military units, military facilities, warehouses, and other Western infrastructure in Ukraine is unacceptable to us and will be classified as a foreign intervention that poses a direct threat to Russian security. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in response to media questions received at their press conference summarizing Russia's diplomatic activities in 2025. So, and this topic now, every now and then, is becoming relevant because, dear friends, this coalition of willing that is created, this coalition of willing that is created by a number of European countries under the leadership of UK and France, every now and then make statements that they're going to send their troops, to keep control territory as soon as they possibly can, as soon as there will be like temporary ceasefire and anything, any opportunity, and they are sending troops, right? And Moscow quite often reacts on such claims, such statements, and reaction is always the same. Any Western troops on EU-controlled territory will be designated as a hostile and will be dealt accordingly. It is what it is. And if anything, by the way, as I mentioned in my previous update, if anything, it is up to Western societies really to think about this matter and challenge their own governments in this coalition of willing until it's not too late, right? To force them to backtrack on this idea, on these plans. Otherwise, once troops are deployed, if those troops will be deployed, then, well, it's going to be too late, isn't it? Because those troops will start going back to their countries in a body bags. So, also something to keep in mind. Western societies have to wake up, man. European societies have to wake up. I mean, it's long overdue, man. It's long overdue. Also, dear friends, well, I already mentioned in my previous updates that Swedish Navy claimed that armed people have been noticed, spotted on vessels, commercial vessels linked to Russian Federation, and some Western media outlets are suggesting that Wagner PMC received a contract to provide security of these vessels. Maybe true, maybe not. This picture is circulating on the internet in which you can see armed person, right? Maybe he is a Wagnerite, maybe not. I don't know, but none of us should be surprised when Russia will take whatever actions are necessary to secure maritime routes and to secure Russian commercial vessels and commercial vessels that are from other countries but are linked to Russia, cooperating with Russia, right? Entering Russian ports and so on. Also, by the way, the Russian Foreign Ministry reacted on a recent activization of a topic in Europe that a number of yet non-nuclear countries want to become nuclear. Germany, Sweden, some others, right? And the Russian Foreign Ministry stated that there is a real threat of nuclear proliferation within the collective West, which is not known for its peace-loving nature. Such decisions are destructive, Foreign Ministry points out, and well, this is all true. This is all true, of course. But on the other hand, if Germany's leadership is actually serious, and if they will authorize military nuclear program, then Germany clearly is in a position, because it has latent nuclear deterrent. Germany is in a position to build nuclear weapons. I think if Sweden And there was talks about it in Sweden too. I mean, if Swedish leadership will decide that, well, they have to be a nuclear country now, I think they can, technically speaking, they will build the nukes too. And if Germany and Sweden will have a nukes, then of course Poles will say, I mean, come on, wait, Germany, really? We had quite a tight history, right? And if you're gonna have a nukes, then we have to have a nukes too. That's what Poles will say, and all of them will justify this nuclearization of their themselves with their non-existent Russian threat, right? And when Sweden will say, "Oh, maybe we have to become nuclear," then Norway will say, "Come on, I mean, we can do this too." And why Spain should not be nuclear? Why Italy should not be nuclear in that case? So you see where all this breach of non-proliferation treaties might lead Europe. And these are countries, by the way, that actually hate each other. Right now, they are Western elites or European elites are trying hard to paint the picture that they all are united, right? Which is a BS, by the way. They are not united. If anything unites them is maybe this current hate of Russia, but same time, by the way, they are hating each other too. Italy and France were never good allies or the friends. France and Germany were never allies and friends. Poland was never a friend with anybody, right? Or the ally. In immediate neighborhood, at least, and not surprisingly, Polish elites were always seeking closer ties with their British aristocracy, right? Historically speaking, and that's why I consider Poland to be British proxy in many ways. And so, yes, there is quite a dramatic history in Europe of wars and destruction, isn't it, between these allegedly united countries? And can you imagine what will happen if all of them, or majority of them, are now nuclear armed? If you keep in mind that the decline of European economies will continue, this process is unstoppable. And if you keep in mind that in 20, 30 years from now, Europe is doomed, man. Europe gonna enter, dark place, very dark place. Then, presence of nuclear weapons in every other country, they're gonna be tremendous threat for not just for Europeans, by the way, but for whole of Europe, right? Because it's a nuclear weapons after all. So Russian foreign ministry reacted on that negatively, understandably so. But what Moscow can do about it, really? I mean, not much, isn't it? I mean, if Germany will decide that they're going to go nuclear, I mean, they will do it, right? And I don't think European countries going to rush to impose sanctions on Germany for that, isn't it? Anyways, few more news. Dear friends, RIA Novosti is reporting that deputy of the Russian foreign minister Ryabkov spoke about START treaty to continue on the topic of nuclear weapons. By the way, I give you this news that Russia will not send the United States official request for a response to the new START treaty proposal. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov announced, and then quote, "We did everything that needed to be done earlier, well in advance. They had plenty of time to process anything. A lack of response is also a response. We will proceed from what we actually have. We will develop our policy, both political and material, strictly focusing on the needs to ensure our security, no more, better, no less," Ryabkov said there while commenting on the topic of expiring this New START treaty, which will be in force only for next couple of days, I believe, by the way. On 5th of February, in 2 days' time, this START treaty will expire. And this was the last treaty in place between Moscow and Washington on the nuclear control. And they're going to be nothing there. After that, Rybkov also made some other statements, and let me give you key points from there. Russia and US. I mean, Russia will not make any demarches before the expiration of their New START treaty. Washington lack of response is also a response, as I already said from previous news. Russia-US dialogue on strategic stability is impossible without a fundamental review of Washington's hostile policies, which is true, by the way, 100% true. But it is also true that Washington not gonna change its policies, by the way, towards Russia, not now and not ever, I guess, because I don't think American public, I don't think U.S. citizens will ever be able to reclaim their own country. Unfortunately, I mean, I would love to be wrong on that, but I'm afraid American ruling class has such a grip on the system, on everything, that they will never ever allow American society to even become closer to reclaim their own countrymen. So therefore, American attitude towards Russia not going to change ever. Pumping Greenland with the U.S. missile defense system will require military technical retaliation measures from Russia. Moscow is ready for this, Rybkov said. And you know, dear friends, as a justification, Trump and some other officials in the US on numerous occasions come up with this topic that they need Greenland to implement this Golden Dome program, which is not true, actually, right? Which is not true. They need, first and foremost, they need Greenland to become a major player in Arctic affairs, especially in terms of Arctic navigation. That's going to become a major trade route for this world in next couple of decades, right? Due to melting ice, by the way. But nevertheless, you know, US might also deploy some missile systems there. Okay, Russia is ready to respond on that. And after all, man, come on, US can deploy all its interceptors in Greenland or anywhere else. They're going to be useless against Russian missiles and and gliders, anyways, right? US physically does not has technology that will allow US militaries to intercept Russian hypersonic systems. They just don't have weapon, right, that can intercept Russian hypersonic means of delivery. Also, Rybkov went to say that US proposals to Iran are tantamount to ultimatums. The word compromise is no longer in Washington's vocabulary, which is also true. And US was never interested, US leadership was never interested in compromises or the dialogue with Iran or in founding solutions. We all know this, by the way. US, as well as all the other, basically, or most of the other countries from the collective West are run by this one criminal group that I called Western ruling class, right? These countries are not run based on interests or the opinions of their peoples of this country. Now, there is this criminal club, criminal organization in which leading figures, leading forces are globalists, American neocons, right, Zionists, and they are using and abusing these countries in any way they want. And their US usually is a hammer in their hands, isn't it? They use US as a hammer, as a military force to bully whomever left and right. And they are using US again against Iran, right? And their target or task of this Western ruling class is to destabilize whole region, to provoke a war wars on ethnic and sectarian lines, not just inside Iran, but all over the Middle East, to create such a tense situation, such a dramatic situation, catastrophic situation, that even navigation through Persian Gulf will become unsustainable. That's exactly what Western ruling class wants. And this is just a small part, by the way, in a bigger geopolitical bloody game that Western ruling class is engaged in, which is directed against whole of humanity, I will say, and which is directed obviously against Russia and China too. So not surprisingly, yes, U.S. Vocabulary of the U.S. leadership has changed dramatically, and it's no longer resembles to vocabulary of the adequate people. Honestly, man, I mean, if you listen the language and how they talk, I talk better, man, which is crazy. English is not my first, not my second, not my third language, and I think even though sometimes I might go wild, by the way, and use some strong language, but even so, if you listen to Trump and if you listen to me, for example, you might think that, you know what, my vocabulary is actually more richer, far richer than Trump's vocabulary. Am I correct? The same can be said about literally everybody from current administration. These are illiterate people, man. Illiterate people appointed on these positions by Western ruling class because they have no morality, no principles, and they will sign up for anything, literally anything, right? And that's what they are doing. And in Europe, situation is not any better, by the way. You know, European high-ranking officials, in some cases at least, might be much more educated people than American elites, American bureaucrats, but fundamentally it does not really changes much. Also, Rybkov said that Russia and China agreed that the destruction of the international security system began with the United States unilateral actions, which is also factually accurate. Everyone would agree with this, not just Russia and China, but I mean everybody, because it's true. Deployment of U.S. Intermediate range missiles in Japan will inevitably lead to military technical countermeasures by Moscow. Understandably so. Japan's militarization will not strengthen its security, rather it will lead to the opposite result, which is also true. And Japanese people should wake up, man. Japanese people should wake up because they've been pushed towards disaster. They've been pushed towards disaster. U.S. Is weaponizing Japan big time, militarizing Japan, weaponizing Japan. Western ruling class, let's say, right? That is in control of U.S. and also is in control of Japan. I mean, they are abusing Japan big time and pushing towards total disaster. I have spoken about these risks that Japan is facing due to crazy policies of their leaderships, and I mean, I don't know, man. If Japanese people want to live on their islands there in peace, then they should, or to live there on those islands at all, they should wake up now, because if Tokyo continues escalation throughout the region under the current pace, it's only a matter of time, and Japan will turn into a radioactive wasteland. It is what it is, and I'm not saying Russia or China gonna do anything, man. No. There is a interesting country on the Korean Peninsula called North Korea, right? DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And yes, they might actually take care of it so that Moscow and Beijing don't have to. So wake up, Japanese people, man. This is not a joke. Some other news, dear friends, and you know what? You know what? This live stream is already quite long, isn't it? This live stream is already like more than an hour, and maybe I should. Maybe I should end the live stream on that, dear friends. Sir, I guess today. I guess today algorithm is extremely harsh on my channels, right? Especially on YouTube, and probably not even 1% of community received notification that there is a stream. But anyways, by the way, I'll share with you this news, sir, and I will end this news segment on that, sir. And well, later on, as I said, 12 a.m. Moscow time, I will launch another live stream with more news. So Chinese Foreign Ministry called the demand to join arms talks unacceptable, and this is response to U.S. demand that in order to reach some agreement on nuclear weapons with Russia, China has to be part of the agreement too. Washington is pushing this narrative for a long time now, right? Since Obama era, maybe even before that. And presidents in White House change policies, not really. And Beijing's position is always the same. U.S. and Russia have like done, much more nuclear weapons, thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons more than China has. So therefore, Beijing don't see necessary to be part of any agreement about denuclearization or arms control or anything, right? And one might understand why China might have 700 nukes right now, maybe, right? While US and Russia each have more than 5,000. So there is a massive difference, isn't it? There is a massive difference. So, yes, this is a quote, by the way, demanding Beijing joining nuclear arms control talks with Russia and the United States at this stage is unfair and unresponsible. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian stated about it, and yes, I can see logic behind these statements. I mean, come on, guys, they are saying, man, Beijing is saying, come on, you have thousands and thousands of nukes, right? I only have like, I don't know, 500, 700. I want to double down on my nukes, man, not to decrease its numbers. So therefore, you know what? If you want, you cut your nuclear weapons to my level, and then let's have a talk. That's what Chinese are saying, by the way. Moscow's position is a bit different. Moscow obviously is not commenting on Chinese position because it's none of our business what Chinese gonna do. But Moscow is saying that if Beijing will agree to be part of these talks on nuclear arms control, then obviously UK and France that are in an anti-Russian camp should also join these talks, right? Because why not? But until now, neither France, neither UK made any statements about their willingness to join any talks on a nuclear arms control and their decrease of their nuclear capabilities. They don't want to hear this, and for whatever reason, and Washington is saying nothing about UK and France too. But for whatever reason, well, they are focused on China. I mean, Chinese. I mean, you have to disarm. Really, man. Come on. I mean, these people. I mean, Western ruling class, by the way, is probably thinking that the rest of the humanity is freaking stupid or something. While in reality, I think we are much more clever. We ordinary people, by the way, much more educated, much more clever, and much more decent, by the way. Most importantly, incomparably more decent than Western ruling classes, because Western ruling class has no dignity, decency, morality, humanity. It's an evil force, right? So we definitely are better than them in every possible way. But still, they think humanity is dumb as and quite often they are coming up with some ideas that you might scratch your head and think, what the hell, man? Why you ever think that this is a good idea or anyone gonna buy this crap, right? But yeah, when they have no respect for humanity, when they have no respect to nobody, you know, they don't really care, really. Uh, they are more often than not rely not on the logic or the intelligence, but on a sheer force. That's what Western ruling class is, man, and for a long time now, for a very long time. So, well, they're gonna be no China, by the way, in these talks. At least it seems like that for now. But things might change, of course. At some point, nuclear countries might get together, all nuclear countries, that includes Israel too, and come up with decision to, I don't know, man, get rid of maybe 50% of nuclear weapons, 70% of nuclear weapons. I can see why this would not be interesting for China. I can see why this would not be interesting for other nuclear countries, actually. But yes, US and Russia definitely can afford this. We can decommission 70%, even our nuclear arsenal, and we will still have enough to sterilize this planet like several times. We and Americans too, by the way. So yeah, we are in different leagues, right? So therefore, why Washington is refusing to understand this? They're not gonna force China to de-arm itself, right? Not happening. And dear friends, once again, this is it for this update. This is it for an update. Thank you very much for your attention, Scooby. Once again, thank you very much for your super chatter on Rumble, and for a gift of a premium subscription to members of our community. And let me again highlight this super chat from Scooby, by the way. Hey, Russian, how much of your digital life belongs to you, and how much of it's on the servers of the USA controlled by companies whose business model is your data? And yes, I mean, plenty of data, by the way, of Russian citizens are on servers that are controlled by US companies, American companies, and that means American Secret Service. That's for sure. That's for sure, by the way. And here in Russia, there is attempt, by the way, right? Attempt to come up with alternatives. There is a YouTube, right? Alternative of a YouTube. It's not as popular as YouTube, right? But there is a platform. There is a Vkontakte, by the way, alternative for Facebook. And actually, Vkontakte succeeded. Vkontakte is much more popular than Facebook, right? Also, there is a Max Now platform, new platform relatively, that is a competitor to Telegram. And tens of millions of people have subscribed on Max. I have to make an account on Max also, by the way. I have asked my family members to download this app for me on my phone, and they did not. Probably I'm going to do it myself. So in some cases, we are succeeding. In other cases, not really. And you know why? Because we need our platforms to be promoted worldwide. We need our platforms. YouTube has to become better, technically speaking, and has to be promoted worldwide as an alternative. Max has to be promoted also, and also Vkontakte bottle. Then we are talking. Otherwise, as long as these platforms are staying local as a local entity, it will struggle to compete with these global forces, right? That these Western platforms are, like YouTube and Facebook and Telegram, and all the others, by the way. Right? So the answer to your questions could be is that yes, lot of personal data of Russian citizens are on Western servers because of the popularity of the Western platforms here in Russia, and definitely we need alternatives, worldwide alternatives. Thank you all, dear friends. This is it. This is it, I guess, for now. Let's see. Maybe I will clip this live stream. Maybe I will make a couple of clips of that. If you come across of these videos from this live stream, please take a second and like that video, like this live stream itself if you can. And at 12 a.m. Moscow time this evening, I will launch next live stream with more news. So see you then. Thank you all, and bye for now. And in case you want to support my work, dear friends, donate to this project under this video in description box. You can find links to PayPal platform, Boosty platform, also to my Patreon and Boosty pages. Please subscribe. That will be very helpful too. And yes, I see Barry is commenting. Boosty is their name of that other platform. I checked. Yes, Boosty, by the way, is also alternative. Boosty is a Russian, partially Russian company. They have partners outside of Russia too, I believe. But yes, Boosty is a good platform, useful platform. Some members of our community find it difficult to operate with, but if you want to donate to a creator in Russia, by the way, Boosty is definitely helps with that, right? And also I have and you can donate through Boosty to me, right? And also subscribe to my page. It's like a donation platform and simultaneously something like Patreon too. So you can have your page and publish whatever you want there, right? So all the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including my Patreon page and the Boosting. Thank you, buddy, for this comment. And this is it, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, and see you soon. Bye.